Evelyn to Philip, March 14th, 1944. Darling hubby, no mail from you today, sweet, but I'm sure I'll have no difficulty filling up a page or two. I did get a check for $3.45 from Sharp and Dome. I had mentioned yesterday that I hadn't heard from them for some time, and they disproved my statement. We also had a letter from Harry W., in which he says, I might even be seeing Phil, if you know what I mean. Guess he expects to be moved over to England or something. Tomorrow is Ethel's anniversary, and Al bought her a diamond wedding band. He was going to buy her a diamond ring also, but found prices exceedingly high and decided to wait. The weather was perfectly perfect today, and I was out most of the day with Adele. It was so warm I used the walker outside. I cleaned our room, the living and dining rooms, before going out in the morning with Adele. I was out from 11 to 11:45 when I brought her in for lunch. When she was asleep, I dragged the ladder up from the cellar and proceeded to wash the ceiling and walls and woodwork of the porch in preparation for spring cleaning. I grew very tired in a short while and called it quits. Adele awoke, had her milk, and we went out. Faye came over with her baby and we walked together. She had some film and made 2 snaps of Adele and me. One includes her and her baby. Adele saw Goldie. She was sitting on the bench eating an ice cream cone and insisted upon having one. Whereupon she took her first walk to Ben's to get an ice cream cone, strawberry, and a stick pretzel. She had a grand time stepping up and down the curbs. When she finished, we walked up to Ruscombe Street and back. Mikey's mother promised me an extra shoe stamp, so I am going to buy Adele her new shoes tomorrow. I think I'll have to get her the high ones, for she needs extra support. Her legs are still a bit chubby, and she has very small feet. Most of the kids are wearing 5 and 6. Her present shoes are 4.5, and they are big. We stopped over Ann's house and learned that Richie has the croup. It's always something with kids. Goldie's shoemaker finally located her shoes, and she's very happy about the newly found shoes. Harry took in the fights alone last night. He's out today trying to get his income tax properly filed. By the way, your daughter is anything but a lady. She's such a roughneck at times that I wonder if she was meant to be a boy. She tears into the boys and knocks them down. She knocked Mikey, page 2, flat, and she likes to pinch. She squeals with delight whenever she can grab enough flesh to pinch. She likes to pull up a person's dress and get to the flesh just above the stocking to pinch. Reminds me of someone else, omitting the pinch. She tries very hard to repeat everything I say and makes some mighty good attempts. You can understand a hazy thank you. She also uses the words nana for banana or any fruit at the moment. Mrs. Fromer has an excellent doctor and recommended that Mom go to him for a thorough examination to make sure she is in perfect health. Mom made an appointment last night and went with Goldie. Her blood pressure is a little high and she weighs 169, which the doctor said is much, much too much. He'll put her on a diet and give her some vitamins to build up a resistance against colds and the such. Now that she has some extra money, she's going to try to improve her health as much as possible. Maybe he'll be able to do something for her feet, too. Both Mom and Mrs. F. rave no end about him, saying he is a wonderful doctor. He is located at 13th and Winga-Hocking. That is all the dirt I can report on today. Don't go away, because I'm not finished yet. Come here, closer, closer, and let me kiss you, darling. I like that. Repeat. Lend thine ear, baby. Do you recall my saying, I love you, Phil, darling? No. Well, here 'tis again. I love you, sweet. Your Ev. P.S. It might make you happy to know that I shall definitely take that Claire Pruitt picture early next week. I'm due this weekend and want to wait till my skin is perfectly clear. I'll try to make it on our anniversary so that I'll have something nice to remember for our third. P.P.S. Adele was out for over 2 hours and held her water all that time. Boy, did she let loose once she could. That ought to give you a pretty good idea of how well she is trained. I'm proud of that accomplishment. Philip to Evelyn, V-mail, dated April 14, 1944. Dearest darling, very sorry I was unable to write these past 2 days, but circumstances which I am not permitted to indulge prevented my doing so. In that time I received 2 packages, the Milky Ways and the candy for the British kids. The Milky Ways are being dealt with. Yum yum. The other package was turned over to the Red Cross, who will see that it goes to the right source. Some kids are really going to enjoy those sweets, you can be sure. Tell Ruth I'm very grateful to her for her trouble. Today brought me 2 letters from you, my sweet, 21st March and 26th March. The former was a shorty and the latter, with the snaps enclosed, a longie. Yesterday I received yours of the 29th. This female is by way of being a hasty expedient, baby, so I won't be able to answer your letters as I want to until tomorrow. Please understand that this hit-or-miss correspondence is very distasteful to me, sweet, but that I have no alternative. I'll make it up to you tomorrow, I promise. And now it is time for lights out. I feel much better that I managed to get off at least these few words. Good night, my lovely, until tomorrow. A loving kiss from my vain little pumpkin. My love to all, your adoring Phil. Philip to Evelyn, March 14, 1944. Dearest darling, last night I went to the early show thinking that I would write when I got back. But when I returned to the barracks, I was sleepy and tired and in no mood for writing. Today, though, I mean to repay you for the loss of yesterday's letter. Okay? Before I go about answering yours of the 21st, I'll dispense with whatever local news I am able to call to mind. The picture last night was Somewhere I'll Find You with Gable and Lana Turner. It was an oldie, but since I hadn't seen it, I enjoyed it. I've been reading A Tree Grows in Brooklyn these past few days and just finished it this afternoon. I found it an extremely interesting and well-written novel. There were parts about it that brought back long-forgotten incidents and memories of my own childhood. Most of all, I liked the fine feeling of the writer and how she imbued every page of her book with it. It is a novel calculated to hit the reader where he lives. The side-splitting humor you mentioned wasn't nearly that. True, there are passages that bring forth an appreciative chuckle, and Sissy's love life is comical to a degree. But altogether, the story has more pathos than humor as far as I could see. I wonder, sweet, if Kate reminded you of anyone you know. It may surprise you to learn that I was and am amazed at the similarity of character, her way of doing things, handling situations, her very thought processes, with those of your mother. I wonder if Kate Nolan brought Anna Paller to your mind as consistently as she did to me. It's almost unthinkable that she didn't, since you know your mother's character so well and the resemblance is so great. I'm glad you're finding time to read occasionally, baby, because I know of no better way you could use it. Today I was busy with the officers' pay vouchers and some other work, and the bulk of the work, my work, is finished for this month. I am feeling fine as usual, which is unusual where colds and mild diarrhea are fairly common. I haven't had as much as a headache for a half a year now, and I can't understand why. I can just see you squirming, sweet, as you used to do whenever I marveled at good fortune. Never fear, honey. I take the best care of myself I know how. And I might add, I know how. It would be unthinkable for me to hurt anything belonging to you, and that's how I invariably think of myself, your property. The only mail I have received in the past 3 days was a V-mail from Ann Furr and a lovely birthday card from the Cohens. I have not yet found the opportunity to answer Ann's letter. I can hardly make out her scribbling, but I will. Tell Dot not to be too critical of my tardiness in answering her mail, because I would like nothing better than to answer her immediately. I also received a typewritten letter from her a few days ago, which I think I failed to mention. It was an answer to a V-mail I had sent her. I don't know if she told you anything about it, my V-mail, but from the tone of her latest letter, I think she misunderstood the spirit in which it was written. I'd hate to think that this is the case, and I'd appreciate it, sweet, if you would get in touch with her and ascertain that the mock severity of my V-mail was understood to be just that. I was feeling devilish when I wrote it and meant exactly the opposite of everything I said. You no doubt are used to my idiosyncrasies of expression, but I'm not so sure about Dot, and rather than have her get the wrong impression, I'd rather you put her straight. Incidentally, my greatest and constant regret is that I owe letters to almost every one of my correspondents. The hell of it is, I just can't seem to find the necessary free time to correct the situation, which preys on my mind continually. The truth is, I hardly have enough spare time to fulfill my obligation to you in this respect. My mind would be almost entirely free of worry if it were not for the troubling thought that I am letting down my dearest friends and relatives. Given a little more time, though, I will find a way to correspond with them. The delay, I must admit, is extremely distasteful to me. It's not the way I like to do things, and I hate to think of what all those I am neglecting must be thinking of me. So much for the local news. On reading over your nice, long, gossipy letter of the 21st, I find that it is mostly about Adele's illness. The only thing that calls for comment on my part, really, is the information that you bought a $100 bond with the $75 I sent you. As we say in military parlance, action taken, noted, and approved, to which I might add a hearty, but definitely. Your letter of the 22nd was short and sweet. It enclosed the prayer which Goldie gave you. I liked it because it expressed without superfluities all the things I hope and pray for constantly when I am thinking of you, my darling, which is just about always. I learned, too, that you are registering with the intention of voting. I don't want to prejudice you one way or the other in this respect, but be very sure you let me know in advance how you are voting and why. Most people are indifferent to the issues at stake, but I am not one of those, and I don't want you to be. I usually have pretty definite ideas about the best way to vote, and while I wouldn't want to foist them on you, at least let me exercise my Page 2, prerogative as a husband, to the extent of informing you as to my feelings and my convictions about the candidate, party, or issue at stake. Trust me not to hold it against you if you disagree with my views. That is your prerogative. The letter of the 26th, 27th contained Lee Nirenberg's very sweet letter. She is a remarkable kid, if one may call a married woman that. There's a world of wisdom and goodness in that diminutive little head of hers. I hope Lenny appreciates her. The next few pages are crammed with miscellaneous items such as your father's new job, Ruthie's first date, etc. Then, near the end, your plea that I refrain from visiting London until things quiet down. I wish, sweet, that I could discuss this subject at some length, but censorship would not permit. Rest assured, though, that I'll accede to your wishes in this matter. It is quite a while now since you wrote the letter I am referring to, and since then there has been little, if any, enemy air activity over London. It is almost a month since I have been to the big town, and I certainly do miss it. I plan to go about the 17th unless the air raids are resumed. Believe me, sweet, it's not nearly as bad as the radios and papers make out. As for the neighbors advising you to advise me, it's silly. Next time someone speaks to you in this vein, you might point out that I know much better than they could possibly know what goes on in London, and just how great is the danger entailed in going there. You know better than anyone that my design for living doesn't include being liquidated by a bomb. Moreover, I never was one to go hunting trouble or courting danger, and I haven't changed. So if you receive a London letter within the next week or so, put your fears at rest and think nothing of it. Your last paragraph in this letter tickled me. After writing 5 full pages, you confess, I'm not in a letter-writing mood. How many pages would there have been if you were in the mood? Your letter dated 28th February is a real longie, is bright and cheerful, and generally a delight to read. It starts off with a running commentary on my last London letter, when I met Eddie. Goes on to describe what the pumpkin looks like now, her latest acquisitions of knowledge, the latest additions to her vocabulary, etc. You say it kills you that I can't see my dream come true. You underestimate both my own powers of imagination and visualization and entirely overlook your own talent for describing things in general and the pumpkin in particular. I assure you, Chippy, I see my dream come true very clearly thanks to you. So in the future, don't feel too badly on my account. That list of names that Harry and Goldie are considering for the newcomer is mighty attractive. I particularly like their selection of J for a middle name. So much, in fact, does the appellation appeal to me that regardless of the first name they decide on, I shall call him J. The increase in the amount of money that you will be called on to contribute to the household is regrettable, since it cuts sharply into the amount you might have saved, but I'm sure you appreciate the necessity for so doing, and I'm more grateful than you know, baby, that you are so understanding as to give it cheerfully. A few days before I received this letter, I sent one reminding you that last March we were both in Columbus. I went into detail, or rather, I touched on the highlights of those blissful 2 weeks. I should have trusted you to remember that happy occasion, darling, for sure enough, you recall it in the very last paragraph of this letter. Thanks for the 29 kisses, Ev, darling. I intend to return them many times over someday. The last and latest of your letters is dated 29th February and is 4 pages of miscellany that do not require comment, except that very naughty last line. I often have cause to marvel at the insight, intuition, instinct, or call it what you will, that tells you as so infallibly what to say to endear you even more to my already overflowing heart. That naughty line is just another instance of what I mean. When I read it and the following, wow, who said that? And the P.S., I'm a bad girl, it had just the effect you meant it to have, you adorable vixen. Could I have gotten my hands on you at that moment, I would have eaten you alive. And if you're skeptical about that, just try me sometimes when I can get at you. I neglected to tell you that I am CQ tonight, hence this typewritten longie. At the moment, I am missing you so very much that the pain is almost physical. I adore you, my own Chippy, and would give anything in the world at this moment to be able to convey in person the full extent and meaning of that adoration which is so great a part of me that sometimes I think there would be nothing left of your Phil if it were subtracted. Right now you are, in all probability, in the midst of eating supper about 3,000 miles from here. Would it surprise you then to know that you are, at the same time, right here in the loving arms of your Phil? P.S. A loving kiss to my pumpkin. My love to all.